Good evening. Stream just a couple of minutes late, but hello to Edison, to Shinobi. See you chatting away in chat already, which is good news. Honey Badgers, yeah, not pets. Absolutely not pets. Utterly terrifying creatures. But welcome, welcome. Just going to give it a couple of minutes, see who we get joining us this evening. But got a couple of fun bits lined up this evening. I've had a bit of a nerd weekend, and I have all sorts of stuff to show you. So that's going to be quite cool. And then, of course, talking about Arena Commander and just Star Citizen in general. So let's see how we get on. Stunner Macho, hello, welcome. Yeah, Arena Commander and stuff. So, good to see you all in. I'm having fun with that camera tracking me around again. But we'll see. So, yeah. So, how's everyone's weekends been? Have they enjoyed themselves? Has it been a good one? I have spent a weekend, or at least a good half of my weekend, doing hobby stuff. So I'm sure it's common knowledge by now, but I'm a massive tabletop gaming nerd. I really enjoy Warhammer and stuff like that. And a very, very nice person on the internet sold me the new box set. He had picked up more than he'd intended, or more than his project now needed. So he was selling a couple spare boxes that he had and sold it cheaply, which was nice. He wasn't trying to scalp them. He sold them cheaper than I could get them for normally, and included postage and all that. So I've spent a weekend building these guys. These are some of the... I don't know if it's going to show you that because it's still trying to focus on my face. There you go. But that's a true scale Terminator. They're quite good fun. Everything from them, you've got these normal guys who carry effectively what is a flame weapon. Again, I'll put my hand there, hopefully it'll... There you go. So he carries a flame weapon all the way through to a couple of the characters that we have. So we have this guy who's basically a battlefield medic. He's called an apothecary. Is it going to go on? Focus. I dare you. No? You're not going to focus on that, dude? There you go. So you can see he's got all his medical kit. And he goes around, and Space Marines have something called Gene Seed. It's what mutates them into these super soldiers. And there's only so much of that stuff kicking around, so when a Marine dies, it's his job to go and harvest it back from them, which is a little bit creepy. But there you go. We've even got something called a Ballistus, which is a dreadnought. It's got a half-dead guy entombed in here. He's controlling it. But that is a Ballistus dreadnought. Go on, focus on it, I dare you. Is he going to focus? There you go. So that's what he looks like. Yeah, so they were good fun to build. Took a little while. Lots of glue and all that sort of stuff kicking around everywhere, so that's good fun. But yeah, getting high on the fumes and all that stuff. No, I wasn't. No, YouTube, don't demonetize me. Don't do that. Shinobi was doing the Foundation Festival for my main, my alt, and a friend's account while he was away for the... Holy moly. Yeah, it's been busy for you then, huh? Very cool. 9 sessions. Yeah, dude. That's that guy owes you beer. Or your drink of choice. Because that's no, you can keep that. But no, good on you for doing that. That's kind of cool. Ravenfork, good evening. How are we doing? Cool. So we've got a little bit of stuff to talk about this week. I want to talk about the peripheral stuff and then jump into the Arena Commander, and then we'll go a little bit weird on the other stuff because there's a box of goodies over my right shoulder, and I'm kind of freaked out that it's sat there because it's kind of creepy. But we'll come back to that. Yeah, so the big news this week, obviously, is that Cloud Imperium Games have bought Turbulent. And well, acquires, which you assume is there as a buyout, or they bought them out in some form. So, just having a look at this, there's obviously what's on the website for Roberts Space Industries, which is going to tell us what we want in terms of Star Citizen. But the interesting news on this is is actually watching what happens on their business website. So this is cloudimperiumgames.com, and it tells us a little bit more. So back in 2020, CIG acquired a 25% shareholder stake in Turbulent. The addition of the studio reflects CIG's strong presence in the bustling games community in Canada, with offices in Montreal and Toronto. Yeah, great. 1,100 employees around the world, which I believe, according to their statement in the in on the Roberts Space Industries website, in their comlink, effectively, those are the words I was looking for, got there eventually, that they are now one of the largest, if not the largest, independent game studios out there, full stop. So, yeah, with a game of this size and this kind of scope, you would expect that. But Turbulent's existing branch will continue as planned, and its team of 189 employees will remain in place. So, yes, it's an addition of staff. However, it's business as usual from the looks of it. People are saying, oh, this is going to make things faster. And that doesn't look to be the case any more than it already was, because you've got people already working on the projects that they were doing before, which probably won't include just CIG stuff. And they'll continue to work on the Squadron 42 and PU stuff that they have been. So yeah, a little bit of news, but it doesn't really shift anything. It doesn't make anything quicker. It doesn't make anything. It's not a big thing for us in terms of, oh my god, everything's going to happen much quicker. That doesn't seem to be the case. But yeah, in terms of what they've said, there doesn't seem to be, that any kind of spoilers in there or any kind of sneak peeks into anything, other than a couple of the Turbulent staff will join the senior management team over at CIG. So people that we've seen in some of their videos: Benoit, Beau Sejour, Marc Badeau, and Claire. Just those two will join the senior management staff. So yeah, it's a little bit of news. It expands, obviously, the scope of what they're doing, and it doesn't necessarily make things faster adding these locations. But the good news is, obviously, Turbulent has been working with CIG for quite some time. All those procedures will be in place. So, yeah, it's good news, I think, all around. It'll certainly provide Turbulent with long-term security. So that's good news. I'm just going to get chat back up because I've lost you. Chat has disappeared. They probably use leftover subscriber funds to acquire them. Yeah. I think a lot of that will be in terms of the buyout. They've said, I think, in here that because they've joined the executive board, it may well be. Yeah, there you go. In addition, Beau Sejour and Baudet will become CIG shareholders. So they'll have bought them out with stock, effectively, in addition to other bits. But yeah, it's nice to see that there's going to be no downsizing of Turbulent. They're not going to get rid of anyone. Everyone's job's secure, which is how these things should go. If you're not going to buy out a company and make that a good thing for the people in that company, then you shouldn't be doing it. But yeah, really good. Cool. and Turbulence relationship, obviously, them going back quite some way. But yeah. Good. Good. Okay. On to the bit I think that people are kind of key to have a look at, and we're going to have a look at the roadmap roundup, because it puts now a lot of the spare stuff, including the only missing bit of Arena Commander, have now been committed. They're all in 320. And the release is now looking something like this. Yeah, absolutely. What you tend to find, Macho, sometimes is things like it's not so much the developers. Sometimes it can be things like admin staff and stuff like that, because there are already HR or payroll staff or whatever that do that within the parent company. Sometimes you can find it's like the peripheral staff that get let go, but they're just keeping them all, which is kind of cool. But looking through then, what 320 is looking like. So Seraphim committed, that's a replacement for Port Olisar, and then we have all of the Arena Commander modules kind of committed. So out of what we're getting in 320, only at the moment the Hull C, the vehicle handling improvements, the salvage contacts, that's the criminal ones where you've got to remove identifying marks from the bad guys, and Seraphim are going to be for the PU. The majority of the thrust of 320 is for the, at least from the content side, is for Arena Commander. And within that, we're getting the whole update to how it all looks. We're getting racetracks added, different maps, dogfighting, all that sort of stuff. We're getting experimental game modes, which allows them to hone in on particular bits of gameplay, and various bits and pieces. So, hopefully that'll include things like the tongs. I haven't seen that removed if it has, but yeah. Arena Commander then. It's always been their testbed. The idea that Arena Commander is kind of, has been expanded to include things like Star Marine and all that sort of stuff. And it's going to be now the catch-all for that. What are people's thoughts? Macho says, I can't say I'm super excited for Arena Commander update. Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. You can kind of see here, I think that's a bit blurry, but I can just about... You've got free flight, which allows you, I guess, just to zip around at your will. Control, Classic Race, Pirate Swarm, Vandal Swarm, Battle Royale, Elimination, a Squadron Battle, a Duel, and we know that there's going to be some other bits added to that as well, like the experimental game modes, like Tonks, like all that sort of stuff. But Arena Commander... it's kind of... It's important from a gameplay testing perspective, and I think I have a handle enough on how testing is working for CIG to say that I understand why they're doing what they're doing. So one of the key things is master modes. These things that are supposed to improve combat for us. There's two sides to the master mode. There's combat speed, which is going to limit you to the lower end of speed. That's going to be where your shields are active. That's going to be where your weapons work. All of the stuff that normally happens for us all of the time in combat, or just flying around, will be limited to that lower end. Then you access the upper end of your speed, so a couple of times your SCM and faster, by going into like a pre-quantum mode. And that's where your shield shut down, your weapons no longer function, but it's the speed you need to break away, and then hopefully get to quantum, and run away if that's what you're trying to do. Or go and warn your fleet, or whatever it is, try and get away with your cargo. The interesting thing is that the interdiction ships, it's planned that they're going to be able to stop you switching between the modes or switching up again, so it'll stop you running away, so you'll have to stay and fight. And part of this drive is to stop the jousting that's happening. So, they've kind of gone to the point where, hello, Amy, good to see you, mate. You can see an enemy, it's outside of weapons range, so you boost. And you give it loads of power because you're concentrating on combat. You're not really watching how far or how much power you've applied. Next thing you know, you're closing at 700, 800 meters per second. You then reduce speed, turn around, spin, and what you end up is this jousting thing where ships effectively just end up doing that at each other. And it doesn't happen for everyone, but it is enough that CIG have said they wanted it to be more kind of archetypal dogfights and all that sort of stuff, rather than just going in and whoever's got the most alpha damage wins sort of stuff. So reduce the speed that people can move around at in combat should hopefully reduce that. They're not bringing it to both Arena Commander and PU at the same time. It's going to be Arena Commander first, and it looks like, from what I've heard, Edison was talking to me about this earlier, it looks like it might not be, that multi-crew ships might not be in at that point. So you might not be able to load in multi-crew ships. So it will be a focus on the fighters and the one-seater ships at that point to see whether or not it works. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think because, Arena Commander, I don't tend to spend a lot of time in there anyway. Does anyone spend a lot of time in Arena Commander here? I'm not entirely sure if it's something that I could be tempted into Arena Commander to go and test. Macho says, I can only see a proper master mode being tested in the PU. Yeah, I mean, the thing with combat is they're trying to balance something that's so multifaceted. I think I can see why they've opted. What I'm trying to say is I can see why they've opted to take things into Arena Commander, because you can isolate on one thing and see what happens. Because it might be that it fixes it for single seat ships, but doesn't fix it for multi-crew. So you go, okay, well, we'll have it in, and then we'll look at multi-crew ships. If you change everything, or you just put it in once and apply it to everything, it's like, well, how do we know what's working? You've got to start to reduce some of the variables to figure out, this is working, that isn't working, and et cetera, et cetera. So I can see why they're wanting to isolate it in that manner. I get that. Because, there are so many factors that affect combat. You've got weapons ranges, which they've changed. They've got, the projectile types. They've got shields. Armor still needs to come in. We've got how well stuff tracks. There are lots of factors going into this. And Master Modes is just one element of that. Monster Avy says, not now, but in the future with the new game modes, maybe if I have an hour or less, I'll think it's the better option. Yeah, certainly for pressing of time. And I do feel like maybe if I'm doing this YouTube stuff, that I should get in there and give it a go. So maybe from that aspect I will. But just from a fun point of view, if I'm going to sit down and game with Star Citizen, I'm going to game with Star Citizen. I'm going to get in the PU and do stuff. I'm not necessarily wanting to just go to Arena Commander. I mean, certainly for the racing and practice and stuff like that, because it's such an embuggerance in the PU. When you die, then having to go and sort and respawn and get back there and all sorts of stuff. So the racetracks thing, removing all the lag that goes with that as well. So I get like this, the raceways, perfect, absolutely. Experimented experimental, silly stuff, yeah, fine. I mean, maybe one of the ways around this is to give us something, is to make there some sort of reward of it. But then, does that mean you're having people in who don't want to test? So maybe there's like something like subscriber flare, skins or whatever, bits of equipment that you get, UEC rewards, whatever it is, for having a go. But if you then flood it with people who are only there for the rewards, it's not going to get tested properly. So it's a little bit challenging from CIG's perspective. I don't know. Monster Heavy says the Q&A saying the Multicrew Spawn needed more time, but they did mention trying to test out 120, 144 refresh servers. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's massive. If they can achieve that, that would be really useful. The problem is, again, you know, I suppose that's it, right? Is that that's really interesting, actually, Avi. You bring up a really good point with the refresh, is that they know what they're aiming for in refresh. Maybe what they do in Arena Commander will show them what the minimum refresh they need to achieve is. Because in PU, obviously, that's going to be a slow process with lots of stuff getting added. You know, they're going to have to optimize after game loops are added and stuff like that, and remove all the fat off the code and get it to process all this stuff much quicker. Whereas, you know, they don't even know what they need to aim for. So maybe with Arena Commander, that's a really good point. They at least, to get a really good feel out of combat, it's like, well, okay, what's the refresh we need to aim for? That's a really good point. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. I guess, you know, I just begin to feel. I see it from a content perspective. 320 is going to feel light, and it's going to be rough after 319. I mean, when you look at what we got in 319, we got the Lorville bit, we got salvage contracts, great. We got Ghost Hollow PvP, great, and we got tractor beam attached and detach, which I think the tractor beam adds a lot. You know, the new player experience obviously is going to only apply to a certain amount of people. It's really required in the game, but for us backers, a lot of us were all sat there going. Shinobi says, current Pirate Swarm is fun, Vandal Swarm is too easy. Well, I mean, hooray for the easy stuff. You say too easy, Shinobi, I'm probably still going to get my backside handed to me, but that's okay. Yeah, you know, it's easy again off of this, you know, for Lorville to become one of the most reliable, or to change from one of the most reliable spawning areas with reliable frames and everything else, to then become one of the most graphically challenging is a really weird experience, because Lorville wasn't ever graphically challenging. Oh yes, we're having a teetotal stream. Sorry, I'm not doing any alcohol sponsored stuff. Mainly because I've not run out, but I didn't have any cider in the fridge, and I didn't want you lot to take the mickey out of me for drinking a nice glass of red wine. So we're on a teetotal stream this time round. But yeah, so you had 318, which was the absolute. I mean, let's not talk about 318. We know what 318 was. Utter dumpster fire. 319 tried to fix a lot of those issues, seemed to get at least the technical ones out of the way for the majority of people, in terms of at least people could log in. And then 320, we're hoping to move forward, and what we're going to get, if we're lucky, is Retrieve Consignment, which is likely to be very, I would imagine, PvP based again, although it does say here for an organisation or individual, so it might be that there are elements of that are not PvP, and that's great. And the new Crusader platforms, the bits that were taken out effectively are now coming back in to be fixed. So that's that. So there is content there. But I think for me, I can see why people are having a go. Normally, you see these comments on things like Facebook posts and whatever CIG puts up. You see them on Spectrum, and but what about content? Blah blah blah, and you start to feel a little bit. It's like, really, with 318, it was like, maybe let them fix stuff first. Coco, good evening, mate. Good to see you, buddy. But now, moving on from 320, I can understand why people might be feeling a little bit like that, right? Because going all the way back, with 318, we got some fun in there. It was a sizable patch, completely overshadowed by the ridiculous technical problems that came with that, with persistent entity streaming. What I think is really good is Tree. Good evening, buddy. Good to see you, mate. Just for a little bit of admin, this is going to matter to no one else. Tree, I have swapped my profiles back on Discord, so I'm no longer on the one that's connected with you. So I will touch base with you through Info Runners and swap back again, but I'm now back in control of my own Discord channel, which is a relief, if I'm being honest, as I'm sure you can understand. So yeah, good to see you. If you want in, mate, there's a link in the description. So please come in. I'll give acquire the roles and stuff afterwards, and we'll have a chat, buddy. But it'll be good to catch up. Mount Stunner says, red wine is awesome. Yes, it is. I would take the mickey out of anyone who tried to take the mickey out of you for drinking it. So no worries, mate. Cheers, bud. Although I'm not going to go and crack an entire bottle now. I've got about an hour and a half left of the stream. And work tomorrow, so that would be a significantly bad idea. But yeah, I think the key thing for me going across these is you read the Squadron 42, the PU report. And what it says is, which is the key thing, I think, for all of us, and I'm going to go and find it. We had a look at this last week, but I think it's worth looking at again. When you have a look at the engine stuff, it's really key, this. Here you go. The core engine team finished integrating the latest changes into the main development branch. That means that all the PES hotfix and stuff, because of course 319 was still running on a branch of 318. So they've now managed to sort that out. And it says this took a significant effort, but the team managed to stabilize and roll out the many major rewrites made over the past few months. So really, really good news there that's in. So yeah, that's good news. And as you go through that, you see that they're starting to look everything else. So while their focus will still be on everything related to server meshing, bringing the team over brings the knowledge and ownership of the entity system together, which should allow more efficient communication. Okay, so that's the entity system tech team has now been absorbed by the core engine team, if that means anything to anybody. But yeah, so I think the key thing is, for me, is recognising that 320, whilst it might feel content light, is still at its heart a technical patch. Because it's still reworking all of the work post 318 and 319 into main development, which has now been achieved, which is great news, because for the first time, they've been ahead of their patches, right? This is the first time in a long time it's only been 2 months between major patches. So, because they didn't develop their own branch for 319, it was all developed the same. They had to, because of the mess that 318 was in. So, quarter 3, hopefully we'll have a lot more polish. We'll absolutely stabilise things. You'll see backers returning. And this is where, it's important, like Matthew says about Arena Commander, is that this is one of the things that the Arena Commander teams, The teams that are working on those bits and not the core game, because that's not their area, because they're not network teams and whatever else, have kind of stepped into the breach and gone, okay, well, we're going to give you a bunch of updates that were on the cards. We'll do that potentially a little bit sooner than was planned, but we'll bring this out so at least there's something. So, I think that's where they're going. Oh, sorry. Manstender says, it means resistance is futile. Your unique attributes will be added. Yeah, what is it they say? Your cultural and individual uniqueness will be added to our own or something. Yeah, no, that's not good. That's it. The engine system team is just going around assimilating other teams now. It's all going wrong. It's the start of the AI revolution. Nice. But yeah, cool. So plenty in there, I think, to have a think about with Arena Commander. I think Arena Commander could be one of those things that's really, really useful. And look, you're never going to be forced to enjoy Arena Commander. If you don't enjoy the idea, then you don't enjoy the idea, right? That's just not going to happen. But it could be used for so much. It could be the free-to-play end of Star Citizen, where people get to come in and they get to do stuff without having to gear up and do all that nonsense. They just get in, play, figure out how it is, appreciate it, and potentially Theatres of War could be absorbed into that. I was just thinking when I looked at that, like the bit where it says about, oh, sorry, not that one. It was looking at the Korea, right? Some of these maps could start to become, a combined dogfighting and FPS, like Arena Commander was supposed to. So why not with Korea have two teams and you've got some guys defending and some guys attacking, and it involves going into the station and you either go in as Marines and you go in as pilots. I'm sure, if they've got that coming for Theatres of War, I'm sure they could start stepping up to that just to, give people, just to start pulling people in, right? It's like the whole give them a little taste and then leave them wanting more sort of thing. But yeah, I think one of the things that's just absolutely impossible to avoid is going to be the people whinging about content. Yeah. AV, the Q&A, was that in on Spectrum? Has anyone got a link they can kick me rather than me going to find that? I suppose I could go find it myself. It's this pro stream stuff. It's the like with my screen coming up and you get to see OBS and it's so polished it's untrue. But yeah, let's see if we can have a look and find that. But if anyone knows where that Q&A is, before I find it, that would be very, very useful. Was it in the third video? Was it? Yeah, I'm not going to go through that and chase it down. That's fine, but I'm not going to... Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I've not sat down to watch it yet. And I think that's kind of key, right, for us, is that's how uninterested I am in that at this point, is that I haven't even gone to watch the whole video yet after a full weekend. Matt Stoner says, I wonder if peeps going into Arena Commander, the ones that now actually play, will dilute the number of peeps overall playing and testing in the PU. Hello, Retina. Good to see you, bud. Possibly, although one of the interesting things is once they get Pyro, it's going to be really interesting because they're going to need to bring more servers online, but I don't think they're going to need to double them initially because, like, Stanton's just going to empty, right? Like, everyone's going to be like, why would I be in Stanton when I could be in Pyro? And sure, there'll still be a little bit going on in Stanton. They can't switch all the servers off, but it's going to be a massive... Shinobi says, it just shows you're a true info runner. What, that I didn't watch the video? Rude. but accurate. Yeah, that's quite funny. Trey, I'm just going to give you your role, mate. There we are, sir. Welcome, welcome. But yes, it's just one of those things that. Sorry, Monster Avey says they should still have the Spectrum post up. It's not a bad watch for some info on why they do things the way they did. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about having a go, but I mean today's just gotten away with me. So I had to go and sort out food, and all those real life adulting things that you don't normally want to do. But yeah, Avey says also enjoy they only take existing locations. To me, that's a win for training for things and events. Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, so Resina, there's the video that Star Citizen released last week, the Arena Commander Part 3, the Star Citizen Live stuff, is basically a Q&A and a talk about why they're doing it, if I understand this correctly. So, yeah, they're talking about some of the locations. So there's locations for things like the Good Doctor, which is another system entirely, which is exciting, because it's beginning to show that there's work going on all over the place. Avey says, just got mine going, air fryer for the win. What you having, dude? What you having? Tell us. But yeah, cool. Okie dokie. Yeah, so I think Arena Commander is going to be one of those really interesting things that, either you're going to love it or you hate it. And it's hopefully the modes in there are fun enough that they are just drop-in modes for when you feel like doing something. Like, I feel like doing like the Tonk one really does have my attention, and if they can make it so that you can like assign yourself to tonks, so you can have one driver, you can have a gunner, you can have a commander. If you can do all that sort of stuff, then I might spend quite a bit in Tonk mode on Arena Commander. I genuinely would enjoy that. I think the key is they show you how much different combat's going to be when you have high refresh rates, the server isn't under ridiculous load, because in theory in the future it will be passing out stuff to mean that it's not fully loaded, it's got capacity. Yeah. You're very welcome, Ressa. You're very welcome. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I think that was something I quite enjoy. The racing, I can kind of see myself doing when I want to sit down and burn through and learn the tracks. I could give that a go. Hopefully we get all of the tracks on there. That'd be cool. Monster Avey says the full multi-crew was a no-go for 320. Something had failed, but we're hoping the patch after that. Yeah, that's a shame, and it does kind of indicate that what they're doing with master modes isn't an intentional test. It's more a factor of, oh well, we can't include it, but you can still do it in single seaters. So yeah, maybe that isn't intentional then. But I think Macho's point about it needing to go into the PU, absolutely, it needs to be tested in the PU. It might be a very different experience because of the refresh rates and the servers having to deal with everything else that PU servers are dealing with, whereas not so much for the Arena Commander. It's just loading the modules it needs. Ray Lauderback, hello mate, good evening, good to see you. Arena Commander and Theatres of War might add long-term gameplay for Squadron 42. Interesting. You mean as in people finishing Squadron 42 and then getting into a Arena Commander and Theatres of War? Or is there something else you're thinking? But yeah, I like the idea of Theatres of War, because for me that becomes like the most narrative tool that they've got at the moment. You know, you've got these dynamic events where you've got people like Rowena Dooley, Anna Dimitriou, the actress that did all the voice lines and stuff, and the mocap for her. You know, you've got that stuff, and that's good to listen through once. But I think Theatres of War, to be able to go and play like historic conflicts, and like they can tell stories through Theatres of War that make the PU stories more important, in a way that they just can't do in the PU, right? You can't have players deciding the outcome of battles if you know which way that battle has to go. You know, what you can do is you have a game in Theatres of War, and no matter which way it goes, at the end you get something like, of course, this isn't really how the battle played out. The faction A overwhelmed faction B and conducted one of the bloodiest massacres of the last 200 years. UEE opinions swung massive. You know, you've got this whole ability to tell stories, and you can time that perfectly for whatever event you've got going on. So you know there's a dynamic event coming in the next point patch. For the point patch before it, you can have this Theatres of War new mission included, which just gets added to the library. But for all of us, it's like you get to play through it, you get to do what gamers do, you get to change the story if you know, if you're able to win when you shouldn't have. But what we're also doing is showing you what happened, and you know, then they give you the videos and everything that go with what really happened in lore. But that makes it real in a way that you just can't do that in the PU. You know, because the whole idea in the PU is we can change the outcome. We can influence real world, you know, what's going on in the real world, in the game world, right? We can change the outcomes. We can bring in supplies. We can choke systems. We can, whatever it is. So you can't allow these things to, you know, because you know what players are like. We just get in there and make a bloody mess of stuff, right? We're just, you know, or we turn up with 27 Moabs and just level the place. It's like, we finished. You know, we can be terrible about it, frankly. Whereas this gives us the ability to be part of it without ever giving us the ability to screw it up, which, when it comes to gamers, is not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. So, Monster says they also said they wanted to put the sim pods back in game, so you could be on a long quantum game and get in a game during the jump. Wow. It's gameception. Yeah, holy moly. Kelko says, history is written by the victors. Too true, my friend. They could do something like lose every battle or have plans in the background that still allow them to win the overall war. Yeah, I mean, this is the idea as Theatres of War. We play historical. Yeah, we can play historical scenarios. So the scenarios are already decided. It's just an opportunity to encounter the scenario for yourself. Ray Lodovac says, more like Squadron 42 is scripted as opposed to an open sandbox like Star Citizen. Better for keeping Squadron 42 alive. Yeah, I mean, the yeah, it's an interesting point. Being able to transfer those players and get them into it, because one of the things that I'm conscious of, very, very conscious of with this game, is that we play it, we're used to it, and, you know, when they add new stuff, we learn, because for us it's being added at a slow rate, right? Which must have been what EVE felt like to the people who played from day one. Try and get into EVE now if you've never played it, or if you've only like played a little trial and not really got out of high-sec space or whatever else. It's ruddy impossible to figure out what's going on. So you just look at this. I opened that skill tree and closed it again because I was just like, I don't even know. These skills sound amazing. I don't know what they do. I don't even know what I'm aiming for. So I don't know which way to go. There are so many variables, and without that player help, it's impossible. And on its own, Star Citizen faces that same problem. I mean, how many times have you seen people going, I can't get out of my hangar because they don't understand they need to ask permission to depart? It's a very small thing, but as the game becomes more and more and more and more complicated, as the cockpits become more and more tactile, I mean, if you think, we want to leave it 5 years, if you think that controls page looks complicated now, in 5 years, it's going to be mental. So, yeah, being able to learn a bunch of the base controls through Squadron 42, where you are spoon-fed them when the story requires, rather than just, I want to go and do the most complicated thing in the game and I've got to learn it all at once, really, really helps, right? I mean, there are games that we've all played from single player or whatever, and you go into the multiplayer aspect of it, and all the controls are already intuitive. You've already done it. Marcel says, according to history, the rebellion against the Harstons actually failed. It's alright, we'll fix that. Just don't tell Algrid. Monster Raven says, I honestly haven't even thought about it. I was just interested that they were going to launch a game in the game. Oh, is that for the location of the sim pods? Yeah, that's kind of cool. Only 27? Only 27 what? What did I say? I can't remember. I'm so lost. But yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And maybe that's how they work up to Theatres of War. Because I mean, I'd be interested to know what is going on with Theatres of War, because that became one of these projects that, we were told at CitizenCon it was going to be in within 6 months. And that was in 2019. So that's clearly not happening quickly, right? Controls are going to get... Oh, yeah. So only 27 man-ups. Yes. Sorry, you're right. Yes, that is a small number. I'm sure we could do better. Controls are going to get real interesting with resource management for wannabe engineers. Oh, that. By the time it comes to repair and refuel and rearm and... Yeah, it's going to be a little bit mental. So yeah, there's lots of stuff that Arena Commander, the Theatres of War, and Squadron 42 can help with. I think it's just really interesting that a lot of the backers looked at Star Citizen and went, "That's going to be our game." And of course, Theatres of War, yeah, wow, rude. So Theatres of War is going back into production, already confirmed that in Star Citizen Live, and from Xylo, should pop up on the progress tracker soon. Yeah, interesting. Because there's a couple of theories around the whole Arena Commander thing. Or a couple of possibilities, not theories, because I make it sound like I'm reading all the stuff about it. And I'm not on the Spectrum at the minute, because Spectrum does my head in sometimes. Just with the negativity and stuff, I just, whatever. I look at their updates and then I stop reading. 320 could very well be a response to PES and the networking stuff. And, let's bring in some other stuff. Teams that weren't working on that at all, let's bring them in, let's get them sorted. And let's have content in 320 whilst the majority of the technical work is underdone. Okay, fine. Happy. The other option, and I think we kind of knew this since Xenothreat, that this was kind of in the background all of the time, is that the servers are at capacity. So yes, we've had the player cap increase, but what we also had when Xenothreat was coming was a player cap decrease from 50 to 40 to deal with all the functions that were going on. So, I mean, if you want to look at progress and you want a good metric, that's it, right? 40 people for Xenothreat versus 100 odd people for Xenothreat, and other things going on as well, and the rest of the server still being in. So there's your metric. But notwithstanding that, we know that the servers are getting close to capacity, and there are only so many improvements that they can make before they really start butting up against a genuine tech wall, which can only be overcome by buying far more effective servers. And I don't know what their servers are running on at the minute, so we don't even know if that's possible. Sorry. So we don't even know if that's possible, even with the power of Amazon Web Services and the fact they've got servers absolutely everywhere across the planet. At some point, server meshing becomes the next step to be able to do anything else. And that could also be what we're seeing. Because, of course, they were hoping for Pyro to be the end of this year. There's still an outside chance, but I think if we're being honest with each other, Pyro next year now. It's taken so long to fix PES and get that into the main branch, and they clearly weren't planning on 3.19 running on the 3.18 branch. So I think they're one iteration behind. So at the very best, Q1 next year we'll get Pyro, I think. Like I said, still an outside chance. But if I was a betting man, that's where I'd put my money. At the earliest. I certainly wouldn't get a bet this year. So yeah. Mount Sterner says, Tree, what controls? You just hit everything with a big wrench, like in the movie Armageddon. Yeah. American components, Russian components, all made in Taiwan. Yeah, good film. Good film. Turns out that my superhero ability is to be able to remember movie quotes that don't matter to any other human being on the planet. But yes, so that, I guess. But there you go. Monster Raven says, think it was also the video, but some things in the Arena Commander. He talked about spawning in 300 van. Much smaller area, but just think if you could do Siege of Orison in Arena Commander would actually run. I mean, if they could do things like, I don't want to say dungeons, but you get my point. Wouldn't it be cool if you could do Korea in Arena Commander against AI, and you do exactly what you're trying to do in the PU? Wouldn't it be cool if you could do Siege of Orison and stuff like that? Because I approve of that superpower. Yes, yeah. Why is it in quotes? It's a genuine superpower. What's really interesting, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but the blockade dynamic event, I forget what they've called it, or what they called it, because it was that even. The Ninetales blockade is being changed now, and they're going to change that to a convoy, escort, breakthrough, blockade sort of thing, because they've acknowledged that they're parts of that blockade system that just didn't work as a dynamic event. So they're changing that. It was in one of their videos. I can't quite remember where it was, but they have acknowledged now that that event didn't run as they wanted. So it's going to be more around escorts and cargo ships and defending them and all sorts of stuff. So that'll be really cool. I wouldn't mind doing that. If you're looking to cure a Hammerhead, you'd be welcome on mine, fellas, and we'll go and have fun with that. But that would be good fun. We can get some time down. Because hopefully, so this week has been constant delivery for me, delivering training. Next week I get my assessor's tick in the box, my assessor's accreditation for SMC, which is Search Mission Coordinator, which is the highest qualification the Coast Guard has. It's basically you take legal responsibility. Now I am one. I've been an SMC for, crikey, I've been SMC since 2018, I think, 2019. 2019. But To assess it, you go through extra steps, obviously. So that's my first 3 days of next week. And then what I'm hoping to be able to do is finish off some assessments. And then I'll be opening the case on this beast. I'll be putting in M2. I'll be reinstalling or installing Windows. I'll be terrified at the amount of accounts I'm going to have to remember to get into. And back into, and I don't know, maybe I'll lose my Discord again, because lol. And then, hopefully, coming Sunday, the next stream, we will try some gameplay without that crashing thing that it was doing the last few times. So with any luck, we'll at least have the option to go in and try stuff out in game. And if that happens, then the videos will come back as well. Because at the moment it's incredibly hard to film to record anything. To record anything when you go to a location and the game crashes and you know it's going to take you 50 minutes just to get back there, let alone line up everything you need to, and So yeah, let's figure that out, and hopefully we'll have back to videos and stuff, because it's just. There's times when I just need to pick up one shot and something that's missing, and like 2 hours later I'm still trying to get that one shot, and it just rage inducing. Stuff flies out the window. Thankfully not my computer yet, but stuff does fly out the window. So yeah, thanks Dana, thanks Avi. I appreciate the confidence, thank you. Retta says, hey Badges, a good passwords manager will help those logins, at least once you have them all saved. I use Roboform, but there are other good ones out there. Avoid LastPass. Oh, okay. LastPass not good. But yeah, I shall have a look. Roboform, did you say? Yeah. Roboform. Ooh, I'll give that one a go. Yeah, Roboform. Same Nigerian prince that's trying to give me millions. Yeah, so going back to that original point about 320 and Arena Commander, because that could be the other reason we're so stacked up against Arena Commander, is that now what we're waiting for, in effect, is server meshing to come in. Because now, as well as all the mining rocks for hand mining, ground mining vehicles, Prospector and Mole, we now have objects for ships. We've got the salvageable stuff, we've got all the cargo that comes with that, we've got everything else that we can pull off the hard points. At some point we're going to have to deal with all the internal computers, coolers, everything else that we can potentially go and cut out of stuff, and physicalize inventory and everything else. With stuff being left all over the place, bunkers full of bodies, proper Charnel House stuff. All that adding up, plus a player cap now of over 100 players, and then you look back at the 40 players for Xenothreat, they've got to be quite close to that tech ceiling, I would imagine. LastPass has been getting hacked a lot and they're not taking proper responsibility for it. Yeah, that's a very good reason to avoid those. I will avoid them like the plague. But thank you for the heads up. Yeah, so that's potentially another reason, which might mean that our Quarter 4 patch as well might end up being quite light. But I don't know. I mean, what goes into the Quarter 4 patch, what goes into 321, will give us a really good indication of where they are with the build and stuff. But, yeah, we'll see. Anyone else think of anything for Arena Commander? Because I think that's kind of what I wanted to say on it. What does everyone else think? Where else do they go with Arena Commander? They've obviously got theatres of war and stuff like that, and potentially combined arms missions, so you get ground vehicles and infantry, you get ships and infantry, ships and ground vehicles, potentially. But where else can they go with Arena Commander? What else can they do with that? You know, what else would you do with it if you were given the choice? Because that's an interesting one. I'm not sure what I would, what I'd do if I had, if I had the option to, other than, as you said, potentially run, some of the key dynamic event stuff on their own servers within Arena Commander. It's an interesting one. Okay, so just while we're sat here and having to think about Arena Commander, so Retino says they already plan to use Arena Commander as a testing ground for things, so it could go in just about any direction. I'd use it to help advance vehicle and ship development. AV says they talked a bit about non-combat testing and gameplay in it, so I might be able to integrate the guide system to spawn things to show mining, salvage, and such much easier. Do you know what? That's a really good idea. Having the intro tutorials and stuff for Star Citizen, everything that doesn't appear in Squadron 42, having them as the modules in Arena Commander might be quite cool. Because one of the other things I'd like about the idea of tutorials is having it done in game. Now, it was a bad idea before, or it was a good idea but poorly implemented. But those that remember it in World of Warcraft, they brought out the Proving Grounds, and they tried to give you gold, silver, and bronze at DPS, tanking, and healing. And one of the things that I quite like the idea of with Star Citizen is that you can have guilds. So you have a mining guild and a salvage guild and a data running guild and a cargo guild and all these sorts of things. And you go to them and you do an in-game tutorial that is a mission. You get money for it. You pay the money for the accreditation, but maybe you get a share of the profits at the end. And they take you out and you mine stuff. And if you mine it without blowing yourself or the ship up, and you get stuff out of it, you then get to take a prospector out, and you get to do single crew, and then you get to be, you get these different certifications. So you'll get, in your journal, in your qualifications, someone can look at you and go, I want to hire you for a job, but I want you to be to be at least like a journeyman with the mining guild or the salvage guild or whatever, and that way you know that person has done those sorts of things in the game. So not like the whole gold, silver, and bronze things, but that would be kind of cool. And maybe that's done instance. So as Retna says, that'd be a good way to get new players into the realms without having them actual risk while learning it. You could do that through Arena Commander, absolutely. You could also do that through instance, PU stuff. So yeah, because they're going to have to do something, and then making it part of the game like that, so it's not so much a tutorial as a set of learning missions. Because no one likes tutorials. Has anyone ever done a tutorial when they had the option to skip it? I don't think I have ever done a full tutorial. It's always been yeah, get me in the game, I'll figure it out. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just impatient. I don't know. Oh, I like that. So now Stella says they could allow Arena Commander to be a tool for orgs to create and practice their own scenarios and fleet tactics. Wow. So maybe the backer side, so those that are bought into Squadron 42, to Star Citizen, get access to extra modules within Arena Commander. Because there's no reason for free-to-play players to have access to that, right? Other than they can take part of it, but they certainly couldn't, create their own the creator could absolutely, that would be really cool. I like that idea a lot. Sorry, I'm dual wielding copium. It says lemonade, but it's actually copium. So yeah, right. It says I've never done a tutorial for the fun factor. No, I think we're pretty much aligned on that. That's not how people do that sort of stuff. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's I really like that idea with the Arena Commander. There's a lot of things I think Star Citizen can start to do that would allow us greater freedom and actually help them to develop content faster. So one of the things that I really like the idea of, sorry, turns out I'm getting a cold, that's fun. So one of the things I really like the idea of is that they could give us, like you have a map editor or an area editor, let's say with the buildings in Lorville, they go, okay, this is what the floor is going to look like. So here's like your floor plan. This building is going to be like a Holiday Inn. Yeah, something very, very simple. It's going to be like simple. It's going to be like a motel, right? So here's the size of a room. And what we want you to do is take these assets and you put them in and show us what what you think this room would look like using this selection of assets. Hello, Sketch. Welcome, mate. We're just having a chat about there's something called Arena Commander within Star Citizen that's being massively updated in 3.20. We're just having a chat about kind of what they could add to that. There's been some really nice ideas, like using it for a tutorial, so people could go in and learn the ropes of a given activity or profession without getting ganked, which is a nice touch. We had the idea of using a module for an org. This is Stunner's idea, for an org to create a scenario so that an org fleet can go into the scenario and practice its tactics, which is kind of cool. I used to buy card for one game mode, only team deathmatch, not campaign, not capture, not King of the Hill, just deathmatch, having reliable game modes. So it's good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I quite like the idea of is them having like an editor, right? But instead of the editor being freeform and letting you do what you want, they release something every so often. So it's an update to Arena Commander, and it says, okay, when you open it, you get a set area, and it's like, this is the room that you're going to create. And here are the assets that you can do to use it. So you can't use every asset, you can't use assets that are not approved. You drag it in, you arrange the room, you go, right, here's what I think it looks like. And then you get one submission as a backer. So they say, right, you've got 2 months, one submission. You submit one thing, so obviously you're going to try and make it the best that you can. And then it goes off to CIG. And that way then they could potentially populate huge swathes of cities by going through these designs and going, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. Those are fine. And then they just populate those rooms. So rather than them having to do it all of the time, we could populate huge stretches of the game, and that could get slightly bigger and bigger and bigger. They're not going to get overwhelmed because only backers can do it, and only backers can only do it once each. And then they could be like the referral program. There could be a reward system for how many times you have a design accepted. There's plenty of stuff they could do. They could do it with audio files. They could have people read audio files over, record audio files for speech. Like, I would quite happily let them use my voice in a game for free. if that means being part of that game. There's all sorts of stuff they could do to like speed it up, and I think that's something else that Arena Commander could do for us. But that's really cool. It's all gone quiet in chat. The idea either went down really well or really badly. I'm not quite sure. Let me look at how many people are still watching. Did I lose you all? Did you all go? Is that what's just happened? Sketch says, well, before that, I'd like reliable game mode lobbies. Private modes are popular in my mind, but not overall. Most people would rather have set parameters and no surprises. Yeah, it's so we got a couple of things coming in this. If you haven't seen the update, you've got things like Tonks. That's going to be great. Tank battles. That's going to be a lot of fun. Oh no, so Retina. So the idea being that so you can only submit an entry once, but then the next point patch they go, right, you've all done that. Now we're creating slum markets. So here's your square area, or here's your floor plan, go. And then you create that, right? And then the next time they go, right, now we're creating high-end restaurants, go. And so on and so forth. So every so often you can kind of have a different thing that you can create. So yes, absolutely, one entry for each type, but when they're looking for something, they can you can have multiple things. Avi says, my chat seems to have had an issue. I was going to say they did mention private lobbies and custom game modes without a timeline. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Because there's also, like, you know, and I forget who mentioned it earlier, but one of you did. You said when there's a reduced timeline, Arena Commander is going to make a lot more sense. When you've only got an hour and a half to play, and the game takes 45 minutes for you to get all the kit together and get to where it is you're going anyway, Arena Commander might, you know, seem like a much better... Red, no, dude, I'm not touching that one with a barge pole, my friend. So says, after I've had a thought, my hamster needs a break before he gets the wheel going again. That's all. Yeah, no, it's all good. I think I mentioned that idea in a video a while back, as something I would really like to see them do in the game, because I think apart from the utter carnage that people were involved in before Cyberpunk, and now the absolute fever that's taken hold with Starfield. Apart from those two instances, I haven't seen, I can't recall a community that is more supportive of the game than this one. So give people the chance. I mean, they keep kind of doing it anyway, right? They're like testing the waters with it. It's like, send us your screenshots and send us your art, and we'll showcase your videos, and we'll have a community MVP every month. It's like, you know, and whether they're admitting to it or not, we all know that this new player experience stuff still isn't making up for the fact that content creators are their tutorial. Right? If you want to learn how to do it in the game, you come to one of the content creators and they'll give you a guide to do it. Right? So they're already heavily invested in community involvement and creation being a fundamental part of their process. So I don't see it as being a big leap. Now, I know when I voice it to Algrid and Execute, they're very much negative. You know, they say things like it's overwhelming. There's a big QA process that goes into that. You know, you've got all the potential things. I think if you write the editor well in Arena Commander, you can avoid the issues like blocking access to doors and stuff like that, because it can run its own checks. So I think a decent editor can overcome a lot of it. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Skid Sophie says it's just like jumping into World of Warcraft 1 hour MMOs. If I've learned anything with doing 9 guide sessions this week, says Shinobi, it can take 30 minutes just to meet up with someone you've partied with. Yeah, Yeah, it's a long old process. Avi says, very strongly agree. 1 hour or less, in my opinion, won't be enough to just jumping into a Star Citizen. But Arena Commander could just pick up and play a couple of matches. Yeah, and there's the people who are out there who aren't interested in doing any other sort of game mode, and they shouldn't be forced to. They want that quick hit. They want the Fortnite Warzone jump in, instant action from start to finish, done, repeat. So as long as, I suppose, because that's the other thing that Arena Commander might need, is some form of longevity, some form of progression for your Arena Commander characters. Not that carries across to PTU, I wouldn't suggest. But yeah. MMOs aren't for filthy casuals, says Sketch. Yeah, absolutely. The problem is when content creators believe they speak for everyone, there's no content. Usually means there's no content I can monetize again. Yeah, I mean, I don't generally cast shade against others, but I think that's everyone. There's things like normally there's no content. There's no content that I enjoy. Is the rest of that sentence. But yeah, anyone who believes they speak for anyone is needs to be handled with care, I think. Listen to at your own risk. Retinabona says, user interface is everything. If you make it clean and understandable and intuitive, people will jump on in and figure it out because they enjoy using it. Yeah, well, that's interesting then. What did people make? I tell you what, this might be quite a good thing to have a look at. What did people make of the stuff that they showed off about the new user interface? Yeah, no, Edison, you had your chance, dude. We had this whole conversation about how you mentioned about Multicrew not going in, and I mentioned you and everything, and you weren't here, and now it's tough. So there. No, dude, chat away, honest. I'm just here taking the mic. So as the journey to Pyro stuff. La 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 la. I think I've lost it. Let's have a look. Does anyone know what I'm talking about in terms of the whole user interface? It was at the final. I think it was the final chat with what's his face. With John Tyra and everyone right at the end. Let's see. I'm just skipping through the video as we speak. Seeking a wider audience is the death of franchises. I don't want the PA to use the filthy casuals to stay in Star Marine and Arena Commander if they don't have time for MMO simulation. Yeah, do you know what? I will 100% say there that I'm on board with not wanting it dumbed down. As far as I'm concerned, the long-term stuff should take a long time. The game should take a while to, get to sort things out and to go places. It shouldn't be, pick up and teleport around and fast travel and all that sort of stuff. There should be that element, I reckon. I'd agree with you 100% there. I'm just flicking through and frantically trying to scrub through the video as we talk, which is why I'm not looking to see if I can find this. But they basically showed part of a new UI, which is supposed to make it easier to figure out where, what's going on around you, what you can interact with. And it was a really simple kind of looking in the room, just walking into like a hab and seeing how you can interact with stuff. But yeah. Stunner says, it's so hard right now to wait for CitizenCon because I think we all feel like we learn a lot. But the waiting until then sucks. Yeah. Yeah, well, I really do hope that we end up learning a lot from CitizenCon, because otherwise it's going to be a bit of a riot. Oh, here we go. So, this is, I believe, what they were saying about... I'm just going to get it playing first, and then we'll listen to what they're saying on the top. I think this might have been it. Let's find out. Yeah. So this is it.
You can see here, this is in Asiado, which we've already showcased. This is obviously going in and utilising some of our...
Okay, so that's normal.
And then here's a scan wave, and you can see that I'm looking at that data pad, and then you can move around, and it's giving me that information. So right now, it's just giving you the basic high-level information in terms of the names and things. But you will also have more detailed information depending on, contextually what the item is. And what you're seeing here is part of the player interaction system. So you can just, even though that's kind of a complex area, there's lots of little things that you can interact with, but you're getting confidence of, oh cool, I can grab that, or I can use the data pad. And you're not having to go into interact mode, you're not having to be driven by the cursor. You can go in and just press F or interact with it. And you've probably seen this in plenty of AAA games, but they don't have the detail and scale that we do. So we wanted to make sure that system...
That's Robert. That's Rich Tyra. That's Chris.
Here is that there's the default action, which in this case is what you see when you're on it when it says grab, or I think there's a few other ones that you can use as default action. But the icon, you just had a single disk with that wasn't broken, then that would mean there's only one thing you can do with it. In a lot of the
contextually what the item is.
Yeah. So what's people's thought on that? So you got the personal ping, certainly. There's also the whole, interaction, looking at stuff, being able to. It looked like you could pretty much access anything, and I really like this stuff because a lot of this is like your exam is like passwords and stuff like that. But the fact that it's buried in all of the information like that, rather than being like, really obviously put out, that's quite nice, because if you weren't looking, you wouldn't notice there was a 4-digit code there. Personal ping, PP for short. My PP is better than your PP, and I'm never saying that out loud ever again. That's just miserable. But yeah, it's kind of cool. So what do people think? Who was it mentioned about the UI? But what do you think of that? Is that the is that what people are thinking of? Because that feels really... I mean, the other question I guess I would ask, right, is why does that need a ping? Why would that not be just something you can walk into a room for anyway? Why can't I just do that? Why do I need the ping? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I get it for things that are hidden, and I get it for, you know, if you're looking at a piece of, you know, equipment, you need to figure out what it is, you don't know what it is, or you're trying to find the root of a problem, but, like, why do I need a ping to tell me that that's a Pico the Penguin plushie? Like, I can tell that's a Mobigraph. I can see that from here. I don't need to ping. And I mean, maybe that's not the cause. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe what that did, because if we go back a little.
So the first one is more kind of showing what I.
So that's Rich Tyler.
Scanning that first aspect. So you're going into a space, you're doing a quick scan wave, and then it's quickly showing you up the little bits that you can interact with.
Let's take a look at FPS radar and Pi 1.
So you can see here, this is
one ping
Apiado,
only.
Showcase. This is obviously going in.
Verify range to target. One ping only.
And then here's a scan wave, and you can see that I'm looking
Like
at that.
that.
And
Great.
move around.
So maybe that.
So right now, it's
But like, I know that's a door panel because I've literally just used one. But what's really interesting, shut up, Rich. What's really interesting with that is if we go to the beginning, I didn't get that highlight over this. We didn't get that highlight, see? There's no highlight. So that highlight, ping, right? And he looks at the door panel. But I know that's a door panel already. I didn't need a ping to tell me that, because I've just used it to open the damn door. The other one. It's like, why shouldn't that just come up and then the ping be used for special stuff? I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah, like, I think there's absolutely, yeah, use your PP with moderation. Stop it. But, you know, there's definitely a place for the personal ping and the FPS radar and all that sort of stuff. There's absolutely a need, you know, and a place for it. I just don't think it's locating a Pico the Penguin plushie in a room. It's like, that's a coffee cup. It's like, no, of course it's a coffee cup. But yeah, maybe you need the ping to see if it's a Pico or drug stuff Pico. Yeah, like that sort of stuff, right? So, you know, if you're exactly that, I mean, that's a really good example. I want to find out if this Pico's stuffed with anything, but I should, you know, on things like that, or maybe this pops up on mission specific stuff, and you know, something that's core that I can interact with that's going to give me information. That would make sense to me. But yeah. I mean, that's the look. That's where they look like they're going to try and go with the new UI, the new player interaction experience. So yeah. Use your personal ping. I'm not saying the other one, to check if it's the kind of Pico you can stuff. I don't even know what to do with that sketch. I don't. Yeah. I'm going to leave that alone. And so should you. Put the Pico down. Stunner says, like a function of a tactical helmet, give it as advanced scanning or pinging. Yeah, and possibly there needs to be a drawback to it as well. Because if you're doing that into every space that you walk into, with impunity, without worrying about it, it's like, why? Just do the thing. Just assume that it's doing that anyway. You would expect some places that are monitored that maybe you're trying to break into that have some sort of electronic surveillance or countermeasures or stuff. Pinging is a bad idea because you're going to let yourself be known. Similarly on a ship, right? If you're walking around a ship you've infiltrated, pinging, that should say to everyone else, this dude's right here. And they should be able to come and get you. So there should be a drawback to it. But yeah. Shady Phase, welcome, dude. The ping can show you things that are interactable or hidden from vision. Yeah, absolutely. That's what it should be used for. But again, it's like, you know, if you're always looking for the hidden stuff, like the hidden quest stuff. Like, I couldn't get it to focus on anything, and then it does that. Damn camera. It's like, you know, does it become something that you just ping in every space anyway to find anything that's hidden? It's like you're just walking around a hab block, and it's like, well, you know, I'll just go loot credits. I mean, maybe that's what people want, but, you know, shouldn't it be something that you use for a specific purpose rather than just ping, 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 ping? But yeah. Run down your suit's power in a hurry and anti-stealth. Yeah, absolutely. As a drawback, anyone else paying attention will see that you're pinging. Yeah. You can stuff every peak. Stop it. Your animals, the lot. The lot of you. Pack it in. They were focusing on interactables in that video. Not sure if they're going to split out whether you're pinging specific types of things. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I just think that things like coffee cups and Pico plushies and you know, that sort of stuff, we should have that ability to see it anyway, and that highlight should just be letting the player know it's something you can grab. There's a really good mission at the minute. So if you go to Microtech and you go and do the Reclaimer mission, you go on. It's the one with the Reclaimer is a data center, and they want to get some data back from a contract. It's a law-abiding one. You go to the, I think it's called the Black Kite. You go to the Reclaimer. You go on board. There's a couple of Ninetales dudes kicking around. You kill them. You find the encryption key. Go into the cargo bay or the processing bay. You put it into the data racks, and then you've got to destroy the Black Kite afterwards, right? That mission is really cool because if you look around the captain's cabin and you look around any of the spaces, there are bits of loot out. So there's like a med gun on the side in the bathroom, just lying on the deck. And it's not someone's dropped it, it's part of the loot. There's a grenade launcher in the cargo hold, but it's out. It's not something you pick up from a chest or anything. It's actually just sitting on a table. There's burritos and crypto keys and med pens and oxy pens on the tables in the data area, in the cargo area, which is really cool because that's what they said we were going to get, right? It was that rather than going to something and just looting it, you're actually going to look at the loot, you're going to see it around, and that means the stuff that you see laying around, you want to check out all of it. So yeah, something like that, coupled with what we've just seen, I should, as I run over it, it should highlight to me, because there's all sorts of other stuff. There's like the playing card, which very cunningly, it's an ace of spades, so it points towards where the crypto drive is. It's clever level design, right? But there's all sorts of other stuff in there that isn't usable. So maybe I don't, you know, maybe that highlighting that it's interactable should just happen when I walk to the desk, because it's the game helping you out and going, look, you can interact with this stuff. Yeah. But yeah. BBS. I think I know what you're talking about. Behave yourself, young man. Shinobi Trip says, you tell us to stop stuffing Pico and in the same breath to pack it in. I'm getting mixed messages. Sake. Jesus. Right, Amanda says, I suppose it was stuffing with explosives. Do you know, I just... when I said things were hidden, I meant like door block from vision or server rack and not hidden as a secret panel. Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's the sort of thing is that, you know, do they, in terms of clever level design, if you find those things just by running around and pinging, but there's no drawback to that pinging, you can just keep doing it. To me, that's just lazy level design. You would want to do it with things like maybe you see drag marks on the floor where that server rack is. so it's obvious that's been moved out the way. You know, maybe there's a candle, and every so often the candle gutters. You know, like pick any trope you like from a film where there's a secret passage or a secret door. But that would be better than just having to run around going ping, 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 because that's just action for action's sake. But you're entirely right. There should be something where maybe you run up to, like, in salvage, right? You open the computer compartment, you look at the computer or the cooler or the engine or the whatever, it's shield generator, whatever it is, and then you ping, and it comes back with, it's this module, it's this. Maybe what you do is you go in with a salvage module pinger, and it looks for salvageable equipment through the ship, but then it needs another 3 minutes to spool up. But now it's put it all on your HUD, so you can load your mobiGlas up, you've got a map of the ship, and you see where it thinks the serviceable modules are. That sort of stuff works, because A, there's a big cooldown, so you're just not running around going ping, 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 ping. But also, it's you know, there's a specific purpose to it. You're going to use it in a set situation. It doesn't need to be used in all situations. But I do get what you mean, and I see what you mean, and there's definitely utility for that. I think they've just got to be a bit careful on how they implement it. But yeah, this is all good. Cool. So, does anyone in chat, not you, Edison, know what I mean when I talk about blood petals? Let me know, because I've got something cool to show you. But yeah, so yeah, that sort of scanning works, I think. But yeah, I like where they're going with that. I wouldn't have a problem with something, especially if you have the ability to just like edit the options. So maybe maybe it highlights it in one way when you look at it. Maybe the name comes up only if you select the options, because I can imagine that getting that, you know, that's going to feel quite cartoony after a while, especially when you've been in the game a while and you know what most things look like. So yeah, that sort of stuff. Maybe if you've got the ability to turn down some of those options, that'd be really cool. Yeah, as much as I want to hate this, but the Star Trek trope of scanning something will make more sense in certain contexts than pinging something. Yeah, for me, a ping is trying to locate stuff, but it's non-specific, so it's just finding objects like sonar, right? You find there's something there. Might be a sub, might be a whale, but you know there's something there. Yeah, cool. Blood petals, is that what Algor gives to his uwu girls? Blood petals, as in Lilith flakes. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. And I know I'm going to catch some flack for this because it doesn't have the game in it. But I am an absolute collector's edition. Yeah, that word, right? I am an absolute sucker for collector's editions. I love them. I think they're great. So, introducing the Lilith candle. So this is from the Diablo 4 Collector's Edition pack, which arrived last week. It does have the light on the top, and what's cool is this little button here. Right, that's your on-off. Yeah. The reason I say blood petals, bear with me, I'm going to have to back off for this, because this is a sizable bit of kit. But this is what the box looks like. So I've got to grab it, but this is in effect. It's not going to let me do this at all, is it? But this is the Diablo 4 Collector's Edition. And what I found really, really cool, so I'm going to open it up and show you it. The lid is actually magnetised, it opens in the centre, I don't know if you saw that. But what absolutely freaked me out when I opened it was there were blood petals inside. I was like, ugh, no. So it's really nicely designed inside. I'm going to lift it and see if you can see some of this. So it's got some really nice artwork. You can just see there. It's got the artwork inside. Oh dear. Junkie, yes. Collector's Edition Junkie. It's got different pieces of artwork, which are really, really nice. Still in the cellophane, obviously. Okay, and the bit that freaked me out. So you've got these bits. And then as I lifted these two bits out, there was then this scattering of, because the buggers, I'll just grab a handful, but the buggers put blood petals inside. So, yeah, freaked me out completely. But yeah, so what they've actually done is, by the looks of it, they've actually got some fake flowers and literally gone in and cut the petals off and then scattered them into the box, which was utterly terrifying. Thank you very much for that, because but yeah, then parts of the box open up, so without scattering too much of the blood petals, it then opens up like this. Okay, so that's a cover there. Yeah, that's the cover. It's really cool. And then there's the art book, which is absolutely chonky. That's a serious art book for game art. But yeah, really, really nice kind of illustrations and bits and pieces. I think Lilith is like literally one of the first. But they got Diablo kind of captured really, really nicely. So that's that bit. Just trying not to scatter it around too much because it's a bit fun to put back. And then you literally just pull sections out and you just keep going. So we have the Mark of the Heratrim, yeah, which is our pin badge. Yeah, and then going further down into the depths, we have mousepad. Yeah, pentagram. So that should freak a few people out. And then you have a very, very cool map of Sanctuary, which isn't showing up at all, which is a shame. But there you go. Which is kind of cool. So yeah, this is just the sort of thing that I absolutely love. Absolutely mad on collector's editions and whatnot. Anything like this. So I've been kicking around in here. I've got a bunch of the. I've got a whole bunch of the World of Warcraft ones. I have some of the. Well, I have the two that they've released of Total War Warhammer. And I've also got Warhammer do a lot of collector's editions as well. So I've got those kind of kicking around in places. And I'm looking forward to, once this place is turned fully into the streaming cave, I'm going to take you guys on a tour. Turn the background off because you guys don't want to see where I sleep right now. But it won't be that for much longer. Yeah. That's it, and then the other side of the box is obviously a whopping great box that the candle came in. So that's kind of cool. I've toyed with the idea of putting that in the downstairs front window and just leaving it on at night. But I think I might freak a lot of people out. So maybe not. Yeah. Retina, so that's the plan at the minute. I can't put it where I am because my bed is there. That's what I keep putting stuff on. So the green screen won't fit at the moment, and even if I could put it in, it would be an absolute sod for getting out of bed in the morning. So that's not going to happen just yet. But I'm going to turn this through 90 degrees once the bed's out, because I'll have the room And then there will be an actual green screen, and you won't have to deal with all this nonsense. There will just be an actual green screen, and I can pick stuff up, and it'll be fine. It'll also be a little bit less punishing on my system when I try to play games for live, so that'll be cool. But yeah, yes. So the Starfield Collector's Edition is something else that looks lovely. As far as I'm aware at the moment, it's only available in the US, from what I've seen. But I could be tempted. I'm a bad man. I'm just looking at that thing going, yeah. But the fact that it's available in the US kind of helps me out, because my wallet is not fetal in the corner screaming, please God, no more. So that's cool. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, Kadian, but it did go quite quickly. Yeah, take care, mate. Hope your back feels better. Kadian had a bit of a rough time at work and wrenched his back, so he's going to go and get some rest. But yeah, that's kind of cool. I just love my limited edition stuff. I'm mad on it. I just want a room where you go in and it's just trinket after trinket, thing after thing, and the entire room. There isn't a place that you can look that isn't like, cool, what's that? Because, you know, I'm single now, and I'm kind of getting to the age where, do you know what? It's a lot of hassle to be in a relationship. And I'm not entirely sure I'm ready to go back to dealing with that level of bullcrap. So I'm beginning to think that actually, oh, it is available here. Edison, don't tell me things like that, right? I'm going to ban you. Get out. But yes, so, you know, just having this, and there's a beer fridge already up here, which is my actual fridge, because I need to replace my fridge freezer, which the compressor packed up, which isn't helpful. But that's happening next month. So yeah, so there's going to be a gaming cave. So the hobby cave will be in the corner. This bit, I'll sit down, I'll be able to play games, and then the other side of the room is going to have a 6x4 gaming table. It's going to have display cabinets with my models in it, stuff like this. So this is a, it's not finished, obviously, because there's no cockpit, but this is a Valkyrie dropship with Punisher cannons. Yeah, so that's me painting that and getting that finished. But it's going to have all my models in it, and bits and pieces, and just continually added to. But yeah. So it should be a right nerd cave, and then you guys are going to, you know, be taking on the tour and showing everything. But yeah, that's good fun. Oh yeah, there's a StarCraft 2 limited edition box set kicking around in here somewhere. It'll be alright. The other thing I quite like picking up are the BlizzCon boxes. Because they do their tankards that are really nice. The BlizzCon boxes are about 100 quid. But those BlizzCon tankards, if you buy the tankards themselves, are about 200 quid. So, bargain. Edison, good night, buddy. Good to see you, my friend. But yeah, so I'm going to guess, given the fact that we've lost a few viewers, that the Diablo bit kind of killed the end of it for everybody. But yeah, hopefully that was an interesting look at everything. Thanks very much for popping in. Like I said, hopefully next week there will be a little bit more potential gameplay included as well. And then hopefully very, very soon we'll be back to the videos and longer form content. Because these streams are doing well for the channel. They're keeping me in monetization, but it's quite close. So hopefully I can get to the point where we're releasing, get a little bit more money into the channel, maybe upgrade the camera, sort a new green screen out, that sort of stuff. But yeah. Cool. Well, hopefully that's been a counter through Arena Commander and a couple of other things. We'll just have to see, basically, for 321 what sort of content comes, because I think that is going to tell us an awful lot about where the server is in terms of capacity and all that sort of stuff. By the time Badges has to move again, he's going to have so many collectibles that will be wondering how he got all that stuff. Oh, yes. What terrifies me is moving any of it, because it's all in boxes that can be easily damaged. And but yeah, so that's cool. But But yes, we'll get all that done. Hopefully, like I say, 321 will give us an indication. And CitizenCon, I was kind of hoping that CitizenCon this year, we were going to get a group together to go to Manchester and have a bar citizen. It doesn't look like that is going to pan out, unfortunately. But that does mean that I will be here doing what I did last year, which is watching CitizenCon with all of you guys. Now, apparently it's going to be an entire weekend as opposed to just one day. But I think what I'm going to do is the same as what I did last time, is watch it pretty much through without, too much commentary. So we can watch it together. So if you're someone's like, I don't want to watch it with a streamer because I just want to watch it, we'll watch it through, we'll talk in the interim, and then at the end we'll have a big chat. We might even do a Discord chat party and all get into Discord together if that's something that interests you guys. But it'd be really good to see you guys along and have that chat. But let us know what you think. Also, there's every chance that the last Sunday of this month I will be doing a super secret stream. Contents not yet to be announced. It's not Star Citizen, but it's something I want to start a yearly tradition about, which should be quite good fun. But it draws heavily on my roots as both an Englishman and as a member of the Royal Navy, or a previous member of the Royal Navy, and one of the great heroes that is also both of those. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But last Sunday of the month, which, just looking at the calendar, is going to be the 30th. So Sunday 30th, nautical themed to an extent. Yeah, would be good to have you on. Put it in your diaries. It's going to be good fun. All right, and I'll put some news up about it in the Discord as well. Link to the Discord down in the channel, down in the description below. Please feel free to join. I will give you the community tag when you get in there, and then if you see us in a channel chatting, please by all means pop in. You're more than welcome. Trust me, if it's a private chat, you won't see the channel that I'm in. So if I'm in there, you're more than welcome, and hang out with yourselves as well. All right. Monster Ravi says, make sure you watch the Arena Commander Part 3. Q&A 2 has a few neat things in it. And yeah, it's all game stuff. Warhammer's fun. Never got big on the tabletop, but enjoy the games. Play it. Yeah, nice. Sounds interesting. Worst part of sitcom is watching a streamer, picking a streamer to watch with. You pick whoever you're going to enjoy it with most. That's the key thing. I will be drinking through the whole thing because that's how I enjoy my sitcoms. So I might start off not talking a lot, and by the end of it might just be dribbling at you. But that's how I'm going to do mine. Sketch Everything says, I like Brits. Thanks, me too. But yeah. Alright. Yeah, I think Retina, what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of a chat on here, maybe get a few people into the video, and then we'll just descend into Discord, and it can be utter effing chaos. But yeah, I'm good with that. All right, gents, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you all today. You've been watching Drinkers with Game Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.